We need to go on to the final part of this program, where we have a Q&A session, the general Q&A session. We will take questions from all of you, and Mr. Shimada, the President and CEO, will be responding to your questions. As is the case, we'll take questions from people on site, and then this will be followed by questions from people who are connected remotely. So if you're here on site, please wait for the microphone to be brought over to you before you ask your question. And please be sure to state your name and affiliation, and then go on to your question when you're designated. So are there any questions? Are there any people with questions? So, yes, we'll start with this gentleman first, in the first row. Thank you. SMBC Nikko Securities, Kikuchi is my name. Thank you for this opportunity. So, Mr. Shimada, I think this is the first time that you are involved in this large presentation in front of this investor community. So, the program kicked off with Mr. Hiroi. And Mr. Hiroi talked about some of the changes in the policy to be followed under your leadership. So, Mr. Shimada, as the President and CEO of NTT Group, how do you intend to lead and guide NTT Group under your tenure? What is your vision? Can you talk about the vision based on which you intend to lead the group down the road? You had predecessors, and you have very strong predecessors. If you could introduce yourself, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Kikuchi, for that question. Thank you. Yes, I am not a very flamboyant person. So I want to make sure that I do my work in a very steadfast manner. Now, Mr. Hiroi had already taken the floor earlier. As was mentioned, in July, we had the creation of a new Docomo group. And very soon, we'll have, under the Dynamic Loop NTT logo, we'll have new Data Inc. will be launched under this new Dynamic Entity Loop logo. So I suppose business transformation and structural change is one way to bring about change. But we need to produce results as a result of those change. So I want to focus on producing results as a result of introducing these many changes. Now, when I first appointed as the president, I made this clear. We want to be a customer-centric business. We want to carry out customer-centric business. That is what I made clear. So there are a lot of products and services. When you take a look at our products and services overall, are we offering high-quality products and services compared with their competition in all fields? Maybe that is not the case in certain segments. So what I say internally within the group is that we should be improving our quality overall. Now, of course, improving our quality will entail costs. But if you leave the quality alone, then you'll be losing in the competition. You'll be losing against your competition. So we need quality where we can be successful in our competition. How can we create such maximum level of quality? To do that, we have to spend cost. But if we spend the cost, but if we can gain a return out of that, then we'll be appreciated by the customers. And the customers will continue to choose NTT as their partner. I feel that this is the most important part. So for right now, I'm concentrating on improving quality. And that has been the instruction and guidance given to all the NTT Group companies. Now, in order to improve the quality, what needs to be done? The employees have to have the culture and mentality of improving quality. We have to change the culture so that they'll be focusing on quality first of all. I think the mentality of the group up until now is one based on stability, one that emphasized stability. In August this year, NTT West caused disruptions, and we caused inconveniences to the society. So, of course, we have to prioritize stability of services, but stability alone would not suffice. It's important that customers be able to gain new experiences. We need to inspire these customers. So we need to upgrade our capability so that we can inspire our customers. So first, we want to nurture and change that mentality and awareness. That is what I'm focused on right now. Now, next fiscal year will be the final year of the current plan. Now, I'm thinking about the timing, but we'll be coming out with a new medium-term management strategy. So at that juncture, I do hope that I'll be able to express my vision in a more concrete manner. So I hope you'll be patient until then. Thank you very much for your patience in advance. Thank you. My second and last question. Mr. Shimada, you were the CFO, but you're now the president. The balance sheet and the financial situation of your company a couple of years ago and right now is totally different. I think the biggest change is that Docomo has become the wholly owned subsidiary firm of NTT Holding Company. So when it comes to shareholder return, what about your policy for shareholder return? How do you intend to carry out your shareholder return policy? Right now, you are taking very bold cash management. You're doing a lot of overseas businesses with Tokyo Century. I think this was on the major agenda. But when it comes to your policy about financial returns and providing shareholder returns, can you talk about this? I suppose you want to know how we intend to use cash in the future, right? That is how I interpret your question. Now, there was a session about Tokyo Century, NTT TC Leasing. This was part of the presentation. But they were involved off balance. And they had 1.2 trillion asset and off balance. So we're doing a lot of off balance sheet initiative based on which we also implemented NTT Docomo's becoming a wholly owned subsidiary firm. So how we observe the balance sheet is a very critical component of how we carry out business in the future. So when we consider the road ahead, what is going to be involved? In the case of data centers, we have such strong appetite among the customers. So we have to accumulate assets that translates into greater returns in this case. So in certain cases, we use third parties' cash. If the market growth is very fast, then of course we have to increase our own investment. But at the same time, this year, data center, we invested 300 billion yen, but we only invested 180 billion out of that. 120 billion was from third party. In the past, it was 145. Last year, it was 135 third party. So therefore, we are increasing our own investment, but at the same time, in order to catch up with the growth in the marketplace, we do also leverage third-party finance as well, so that we can actually capture the growth in the marketplace. That is what we're doing. So we need to invest in data centers, I'm sure. And also, in order to shift to digital business, we might consider certain acquisitions as well. So we want to place cash in areas where the business is growing. So we need to invest in growth segments. Also, in the recent, we carried out share buyback because the government released some of their NTT shares. So we need to spend cash so that we can spur growth. At the same time, the shareholder return is a very important matter for the management. And in the medium-term management strategy, my predecessor, Mr. Sawada, who he created the current strategy plan, he mentioned that in principle, his policy was to continuously increase in the return, in the dividend as well. And also, he also mentioned we also have the track record of flexibly carrying out share buyback in the past. So that is something that I would like to continue. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We would like to accept the next question. The person in the second row, please. Thank you very much for today. Suejima is my name. And I have just one question. From us, investors' perspective, under the new president, Mr. Shimada, numbers, balance sheet, and PL, out of them, what do you think you want to focus on? Where do you want to change most in? Please give me a hint. Maybe when we look later, we can see what and how the tracking record has changed. But if there are any signs of where the track record is going to change, please let us know. Mr. Soejima, thank you for your question. And your question is very difficult to answer. But why did we today talk about data centers? This is one tip for you to think about. Third-party cash to be injected. Our data center business and telecommunications business, we have worked to raise ROIC, and as a part of that, using others' capital well is one story that we have. But when we are truly growing, we ourselves have to invest in. Otherwise, the fruits of the investments will not become ours. If we bring in others' capital, third parties' capital, then the returns will go to the capital investor to pursue growth. If our ability alone may not be sufficient, we also need to use others' capital too. But we have to be involved. We have to participate in order to gain returns. This is the thinking. Of course, the business portfolio can be varied. And the growth area and the growth portfolio and how to think about the asset efficiency, this is one big theme to think about going forward. Thank you.
では、最後に
Next question, please. The gentleman in the first row, please. Thank you, Nomura Securities. Two brief questions. In March 28, what will happen to the role of NTT Holding Company in a couple of years' time? Because in the integrated ICT segment, Docomo, by March 26, will have a synergy of 700 billion yen. Now, with regard to global business segment, data has a medium-term plan. So that being the case, when we take a look at the March 2028, what role will be played by NTT Holding Company? What business sectors are you going to be focused upon? That's my first question. March 2028. If we assume that the new medium-term plan will be 4 years period, I'm asking what you will be in the very final year of the next medium-term management plan. Okay. Well, in principle, each group operating company has their own medium-term plan of their own. And naturally, we hope that each group operating company will achieve those plans and targets containing the plan. So if we do come up with a new medium-term plan next year, what about the consistency with other group operating companies' medium-term plans? I think that's the gist of your question. Naturally, we'll be mindful of that. But I think it's always okay to review those plans. So if you want, so you can actually exceed your commitment containing the plan. Now, just because Docomo's plan is there, we're not going to be bound by Docomo's medium-term plan strategy. So I hope that's how you understand these plans. I see. I understand. Okay, my second question. This applies to the ROIC, or return on invested capital. But what about, are you going to be focused on ROE? In the case of telecom business, unless investment increases, I think your asset efficiency will increase. So are you going to be investing in non-telecom sectors? And what about net worth ratio? If we take the case of shareholder ratio, I think your net worth ratio, your net worth is going to increase. So how can you improve profitability? You mentioned that you're going to continue to increase. How do you strike a balance? I would appreciate your thoughts on this topic. Okay, thank you very much. As you pointed out, Mr. Masuno, with regard to domestic telecommunication business, ROIC is very important for the domestic telecom business. That is very important. So we want to improve the asset efficiency and make sure that we develop our business in this backdrop. Now, as for the new business areas, what are our thoughts about the new business areas? That is something that we need to revisit and consider. Of course, in potential growth areas, it is important that I think we should be prepared to take certain leverage in areas where growth potential is high. So how do we structure the new mid-term management strategy? It really needs to consider all these elements. So there's a question about the profitability of data center business, and we mentioned that we cannot respond specifically. But when we take a look at the consolidated margin, actually operating margin on a group consolidated basis for data center is not that high. It's high correction. In the case of data center, operating margin is somewhat more challenging in the United States because of intense competition. But if you go to places like India and Europe, the operating margin for data center business is very high. So we need to take a look at each of the portfolio and make strategic investment and make sure that we gain high return as a result of those investments. So that is the strategy which we need to consider. Now, right now, we are beginning to shift to that type of management strategy. So at this juncture, we do not have a major strategy response when it comes to the financial strategy. But that is the direction which I would like to pursue. What about profitability? How do you see the profitability per se? Well, which particular area are you talking about? For the company as a whole, I'm asking about the profitability of the company as a whole. Well, in the domestic business, we have high hopes for the Smart Life business for Docomo. We hope that Docomo's Smart Life business can further brush up and improve their profitability. Also, when it comes to our global business, I mentioned that the data center business profitability is increasing. And clearly, profitability is increasing in this business market segment. So I think it's important that we focus on this high profitable. So it's important that we focus on areas where we can improve our margin. In the case of legacy, there's downward trend. That is a given. We need to offset that. Consider possible acquisitions to offset that. So I think that type of business strategy is going to be important going forward. Okay, thank you very much.
So finally, from the venue, anyone with a question? Thank you. Daiwa Ando speaking. And this is a follow-up on the earlier questions and answers, which means, Mr. Shimada, capital versus profitability. You intend to change the framework somewhat, and you want to grow the growing businesses. This is how I understood. This is how it sounded. This is your new strategy for growth. This will be the thrust of your growth strategy, Mr. Shimada. Oh, your strengths are, for example, HR and certain areas may be releasing possibilities in such areas of your strength. Do you intend to accelerate growth? Can you explain where you have high hopes for going forward, including various areas and possibilities? Thank you. As you said, originally, CX creating by EX. As I said so, ultimately, it is the employees who create new customer experiences. It is down to the employees. And we need to provide environment for the employees to maximize their potential. and realize their potential. And we already have several working groups inside the group. For example, in financial area, life cycle area, CX area, and in energy, we have been working from the past too, but also energy. We have several cross-group working group. And we have, in fact, put together sub-working groups. What is the member structure there? People in their 20s and early 30s. These are the members. We don't put particular restrictions. If one becomes a certain level of management personnel, how much investment would be necessary, or restrictions are brought. So we first say no restrictions, no limitations, and think in the working group and raise to the executives. This is a new mechanism we have been introducing recently. We are trying new efforts. Some point in time, the output results, maybe we can introduce to you somewhere. Maybe within the calendar year might be difficult, but I think there will be an opportunity. In this sense, we want to enhance employee experience and create new portfolio. This will be important. Globally, we want to conduct this initiative as well. About 2 weeks ago in Brazil, São Paulo, we had the town hall meeting. We had relatively young people attending too. We received various comments too. Globally, we can have new proposals brought in, and we hope new challenging and exciting ideas are brought in. Of course, there can be initially the need for financial goals that we want to sort out too, but employees with new ideas, new perspectives, generate new products and services. We want to create such an environment. Thank you very much.
はい、他にご質問。
Thank you. Any other question? Yes, we'll go to the gentleman in the third row, please. Ishino from Tokai Research Institute. I would like to ask 2 questions. I wanted to ask about Smart Life business. You mentioned that in the context of Smart Life, contents, financial business, how do you intend to add value and business expansion of Smart Life business in relation to these 2 sectors? And also, going forward, you have a new ION, you have to invest and do research based on ION concept, I would imagine. Now, Mr. Shimada, you're not from the technology, you're not an engineer, but then you've been working very closely with Mr. Sawata, so you're knowledgeable about science and technology. So can you provide us with an update on the progress of ION, and how should we view the roadmap for ION in the future? Thank you. Let me start with the latter part of your question and address the question about ION. So you asked about the roadmap for ION. So ION 1.0. Hopefully around November, we'll be able to talk a little bit about the so-called ION 1.0 or plans for ION. So we are making some preparations. I think we have to have a good product. Right now it is a vision. It is a concept that we're talking about. But unless we have a product, I don't think we can talk about the potential profitability. We can talk about the return without a concrete product. So hopefully something like a strategy of the product can be shown. Of course, we need a long-term vision, but what about the short-term views? What are some of the short-term plans? I hope that on this point I'll be able to talk a little bit come fall this year. But I'm afraid I do not have any concrete things that I can talk about at this juncture. Now let me return to the first question. How do I see finance and contents in the context of Smart Life business? How do we intend to reinforce contents and finance in the context of Smart Life business going forward? Yes, contents is an area where the competition is very, very intense and harsh. As you are probably familiar, NTT Konokyu, which is a new XR company of NTT, was announced yesterday. Mr. Mariyama, who was the senior executive vice president of Docomo, will be the head of this new XR company. So, Metabirth, digital twin. Why are we so interested in Metabirth? This is an area where new contents are likely to emerge. And I think it is important that we have that capability. In the case of conventional content business, of course, we'll want to make efforts so that we can grow the conventional business as well. But at the same time, though, it's important that we generate growth in new growth areas. That effort is very important. Now, turning to the finance sector, we have the D-Pay program, we also have the D-Card, and we also have the D-Point program. So that is the basic pillar of our strategy in this finance business. Now, with Mitsubishi UFJ, we will have a new collaboration with Mitsubishi UFJ Bank. Hopefully we'll be able to launch new products. And also, we want to promote collaboration with other players in the payment business as well. So hopefully they will be able to illustrate and demonstrate concrete products for you eventually. Thank you very much for that.
はい、他にご質問。
Anyone else? Then the gentleman in the second row, please. Thank you. BOA Securities, Kinoshita is my name. Now to add to the earlier question, financial domain. So this expansion strategy going out into financial domain and ROIC and asset aspects that were raised earlier. What are your thinking? Can you explain? For financial, are you going to use alliance and to be off balance? Will this continue to be your main principle? How do you intend to go out into the financial area? Mr. Kinoshita, your question probably intends to ask how large the scale of the business is going to be. Whether you see on the surface or from the back. If there is a certain scale, and if the asset is going to be ours, at some time we have to think about off-balancing at a certain stage. If can be handled within our own capabilities, I think we can do on our own. In as much as we can do within our capabilities, we can do on our own. But if things go very well and grow, like we did with Tokyo Century, and like we heard from them, there are various partners. And by having various partnerings, we can consider about our own risks. In the financial business, as you are aware, security cost is very expensive. We need to take these aspects into consideration in order to have proper returns. We should think very carefully. Thank you.
はい。
Thank you. Well, as time has come to end the session, we would like to conclude the Q&A session at this juncture. So that concludes NTT IR Day 2022. This is the end of the program. We look forward to your continued support to NTT going forward. Thank you for your patience and thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.